Okay, so in the previous video, we were discussing the game of tag between you and your thoughts, and we ended the video by me describing how we go through our life and we kind of like pick friends and we feel all those kinds of things and just like interact with people for some period of time. And sometimes we don't really want to be around them. Sometimes some people we don't really want to talk up to. And we kind of dynamically do the same thing with your thoughts. Now I'm going through a semi kind of like I don't want you in my life stage thing happening right now. And that's probably why like my feel about thoughts, because this is a 2 month old note. This is a 2 month old note. So my feel about it are kind of influenced. But again, it's fucking funny because when I write these thoughts and I start like working with them, and then I realize like my current environment is kind of showing me how to kind of pulling me or pushing me is pulling me. I think pull is better because like if you operate from a gravitational perspective instead of actual like you attract, you gravity kind of like pulls instead of push, then at the very least through your growth you're a lot more stable, right? Because like with it feels like there's a consistency in a small pull that allows for gravity to be a bit more substantial as a force of nature. And its extension basically is how we define like the strength of the body that is having this gravitational pull. Like, the further out it can actually attract things. And I feel the same with human beings. We should not think of like, I want to push something. I think that I want to pull something because you actually being in a stable place. But anyways, I digress. And so like basically people and thoughts. And some thoughts you kind of go like, I don't want to talk to you anymore. It's perfectly fine. With some people you go like, I don't want to talk to you anymore. So that's perfectly fine. Other people you're like, please hang out with me. Other thoughts you're like, you're here to stay. We're gonna discuss you more. We're gonna find places to put you. And eventually an idea comes out. And then after the idea, a hypothesis, a theory, and eventually a concept, and then maybe some form of like realization of how we could actually prove its right to exist in this world. And each one has their own style, each one approaches things differently. So, how was the last video? As of this video, it's any emotions we don't agree on is not ours. Any emotion we don't agree on is not ours, me and myself. So I ended the previous video with values and principles being the core that unites the intention with everything that's happening around you. Now, I mentioned a lot, there's the me, myself, and I concept. There's like me, and then there's the self. And myself is practically like the inside of the ego, right? So the ego is the outer shell or the expression. Like when you're looking at is right now an ego and representation. And I explained that once is like the thinner the ego, the more we are in tune with ourselves because there's like a little barrier between ourselves and reality. And the thicker the ego, the more the out of tune with ourselves because like there's just literally something that works in reality that we're just following. So any emotion we don't agree on is not ours, me and myself. And the same vibe with the thoughts, right? Because like the triggers of life kind of trigger an emotion. It's funny because like a friend of mine, I actually have a paper here that explains that everything starts with an emotion and then it translates to happiness. But then I don't know if that's what she said, but like in my head, the power of actual like intention would allow you to feel happiness and then experience the emotion behind it. And that's basically how we allow, if the more of the thoughts in our head that we're kind of like engaging with that are eventually they're going to translate into the feeling, and then they're going to translate into, and the feeling will eventually translate into an emotion, and then it becomes like a real thing, right? But here it's like if there's an emotion we don't agree on, then it's not ours. And who is we? There's me and myself. And as I was explaining earlier, like there are values and principles that are interacting between the intention that we have towards this world and values like, I'm going to use something very generic, like loyalty, right? And so if I were to kind of like feel an emotion that has nothing to do with loyalty, for example, an emotion of aggression, I don't know, and if it doesn't really do with loyalty, because like being loyal is more of a sign of, again, maybe not aggression, but imagine like if you're in a state where you're kind of like humble enough to be loyal to something or to someone, then aggression cannot just exist. It has to be pointing towards something. And there's a high chance that it will not be in tune with you because you can't be loyal to someone and aggressive to them, right? So any emotion we're not agreeing on, that's me and myself. I'm not agreeing on this emotion. It's not harmonizing with us or something like this. Kind of says that this is not an emotion that is ours. It didn't start with us. Which got me thinking, like, because like I don't know, when I wrote this, I was thinking about how the external environment kind of like fucks with us. And it basically fucks with our thoughts. And suddenly something's kind of coming up, but we're not really like enjoying it, right? If we're not enjoying this emotion, there's no point in its existence. But for us, that we either put it there, and that's a mistake on our side. But like, oh, I put this emotion there. I don't like it. Why am I still keeping it there, right? Or the environment places it there. We don't like it, but like we don't really know how to like let go of it. So approaching it from that this is not my emotion to feel, right? Anger, this is not my emotion to feel. Because the reason you're angry is because somebody else was. The reason you're angry is because somebody else, like, I don't know, just kind of like misdirected the way they approached you. So they were in an emotional state that you weren't in. Super fucking funny, man. All right, so this is really like 2-month-old notes are coming up completely differently, and it's kind of like whatever I'm writing is kind of like becoming a certain way how I explain my reality now. It's super fun. I am glad I am actually ambitious, or else this would kind of like freak me out a bit. So any emotion we don't agree on is not ours, me and myself. How many times do we actually like find ourselves not really in the best of place when it comes to how we're feeling, and then we realize that it wasn't really our place to feel anything, but we allowed it in. We allowed it to enter our thoughts. We allowed the feeling to influence us. We allowed the behavior to kind of like interact with us. I don't know. There has to be something. There is something. Just like has to be a way for us to be able to engage and assess if what we're feeling is logical or not. Now, I try to do this kind of stuff, right? But most of the time, it feels like I'm opinionated about it. Like, why would I listen to whatever it is I'm saying? And it feels like there's the separation between you as an environment, because your intention, your values, and your principles needs to be strong enough so that everything that comes from outside, if it doesn't adhere, right? Like it's more of a system where you have to check. It's more of a system where you have to check. I don't know. It's like the bouncer at the entry point of the club. He basically or she gets to decide which people enter, and I think that's fair. Every business gets to decide what kind of clientele they want. The same with your mind, right? You get to decide what kind of clientele you want, what kind of thoughts you want entering, what kind of emotions you want like to be exhibited within your body. But I think something like this, like it's funny because like outside emotions, or at the very least like thoughts that are not really ours, are the ones that unite us with ourselves. And even though maybe the emotions that unite us are not the best, because like we're taking an emotion of anxiety for something to happen, and then when we realize that this is not our emotion, we either feel better because like, oh, we can let it go now, or we let it go, or whatever, or we feel a different feeling towards its existence within us, or at least that's how I feel. What brought you here? And then you kind of like feel the vibe and the places that you're in, and then you go like, okay, so like I'm not in the best in a place that makes me feel some kind of way. I'm not this, I'm not that. It's like all kinds of fun stuff. Self-reflection, has it always been this kind of like intricate? I haven't meditated in a week. Maybe I should consider enjoying meditations a bit more. But hey, I would imagine anything that unites us, even though sometimes it's not going to be fair, to be one of the better things that happens to us. Even if it's misdirected anger, even if it's frustration at anything but yourself. All these smaller things, they become smaller after you get over them, right? All these things, as you actually interact with this world, if they give you a chance to notice yourself and to interact with yourself and to come with a decision, I think there are blessings. And maybe that's where the Stoics say the obstacle is the way, or there's, I don't know, like all of them kind of like sound the same. But I guess every religion has their saying that goes, stick to the path, the righteous path, or something. I don't know. It's a fucking video. Whoever knows what other religions like speak when it comes to like the obstacle is the way. Hey, let me know. Wow. Later. It's a video.